I knew it. I was right the first time. Before gang stalking started. I was right. I knew the gospel was by grace. Now it's 2024, about to be 2025. And I got this realization that it is the gospel of grace. Totally, 100%. Unlimited grace. You are in the age of grace. You cannot acknowledge grace without acknowledging sin. You have to acknowledge, that's the way it is. Because you cannot realize you're under grace and you're under so much, you're grace empowered without acknowledging that you have committed sins and you're a sinner. Because if you don't, how can you recognize you're under grace if you refuse to acknowledge or recognize that you are in depravity? Human beings are finite. God is infinite. Human beings are limited under time. We're all governed by time. So we all die. We are mortal creatures. So with this mortality, not immortal, God is immortal. We are mortal, which means we are conditional by nature, which means we are always going to be imperfect. We will always be there will always be a flaw about us. No matter how we think, what we do, there's always going to be a flaw. And so that is why you have to acknowledge that's a sin. I mean, there are sins. Sins are flaws. Sins is a flaw about us, whatever we do. Committing and acknowledging that you're a sinner, because we are full of flaws, no matter what we do, every single day. So until you recognize this, acknowledge this, that there are flaws about you, then you experience grace. Because the gospel, what it is, it's not religion. Well, it's not religious spirit, not legalism. Yeah, it's not legalism. It's the gospel of grace. What it is that once you acknowledge that you have flaws about you, you're imperfect by nature, you will always be imperfect. No matter how you think and what you do, perform, you can never vindicate yourself. No matter how many good deeds you do, you will always be imperfect. So that's what it means to be a sinner. That's what it means to have sin, to commit sin. You will always be imperfect. And once you recognize this, then you can receive grace. You can finally realize that, like, God, what it is, the gospel of grace, the gospel of Jesus Christ in general, God already knows that you're imperfect, because God is perfect. God is immortal. He's infinite. He's unlimited, unfathomable. He's beyond space and time. He is beyond all the dimensions. He's the light, and he's beyond the light. So he already knows this. He already knows that you are imperfect. He already knows that you have flaws, because you're not a God. You're a mortal being. You will die. If someone can stab you in the face, you're dead. Yeah, you're not a God. You're not a deity. You're imperfect by nature. But God knows this already. That's why he's like, I want you to know that you're under grace. You can never vindicate yourself. You can never justify yourself. But that's okay, because it doesn't matter. I love you. You're under grace. So it doesn't matter how many sins you've committed, because you're under grace. I do not look at those sins. I do not look at your punishment. You're not punished at all because I see grace upon you. This is the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is what the gospel of grace is. This is the epitome of Christianity. So I knew it. I knew that this was the truth. But someone else, gang stalkers, who are witches in disguise, are trying to confuse the hell out of me, brainwashing me to believe like it's religious spirit, following legalism, thinking like, oh, I gotta make sure I do everything perfect so I don't mess up and I don't get punished. But once I figured it out, I'm like, wait a second, I knew it from the beginning, 2021. I remember this. And I'm like, so these gang stalkers have tried to make me make me trick myself. I was deceived. It is the gospel of grace. And then I realized, like, man, religious spirit is dangerous, man. I don't know who they are. They're witches. They work for the government surveillance, monitoring spirits, gang stalkers who are telling Christian content creators and any other Christian minister a lie to tell me, to brainwash me into this cult mindset that's not even gospel of Jesus Christ, who's telling me something else. We're not even really completing the entire paragraph, just taking things out of context to make me question myself and like, oh, I must got it right, got it wrong or something. Actually, no. Now I know. Now I know what is truly going on. These gang stalkers are witches, man. And I don't know who they are. They're hacking my devices. They're hacking everything. They're witches. And they want me to think that, they want me to believe like it's religious spirit, like legalism, like living by the old law, old covenant. You're wrong. I knew it from the beginning. It's grace, man. And some other Christians are out here who are so brainwashed. That's why there's some of these neighbors around me that are Christian, but like there's reasons why I don't I kind of like ignore you, because you don't go by grace. It is totally grace, 100% unlimited grace. We are in the age of grace right now, age of grace, 100% unlimited. But it's not going to last forever, because I know during the eschatology timeline period, as I studied about it, historical premillennialism, also known as post-tribulation, and during the last days of the end times, that when grace is not going to be forever. You're not going to feel grace anymore. When will grace be lifted, be totally disappeared? When one world government comes, when that is arrived, but it's the second phase of the 7-year period. Yeah, the first phase is 3.5 years of total peace, world peace, total peace. But then the second phase, that's when grace is gone. It's disappeared, because the Antichrist. Once the Antichrist becomes dictatorship over the entire world, the age of grace is gone. There's no grace. So what does that mean when there's no grace? Yes, it means that the concept of the gospel of grace is like, even though it's truth, but you won't feel it. You won't feel grace empowerment over you. And then you also the supernatural gifts are gone. They're disappeared. They're removed. No more healing, no more prophecy, none of all that stuff. Nothing. So if you see someone get injured, they're injured, period. If you see someone get killed, you can't resurrect them. They're dead. So yeah, but that's why basking where you're at now, right now, because you don't want to take advantage and take this time for granted that we're in the age of grace right now. And yeah, And then anyways, so it's 100% grace, 100% grace. What does that mean? It means, yes, there's rules in Christianity, but it's grace. That means if you don't follow the rules, there's no punishment because you're in grace. Yeah, that's it. It is, man. It's not hyper grace. It's not hyper grace. This is the concept of grace, gospel of grace. Yeah, great. Anyways, I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, you do. I do need to go in the world. I realize that. Oh yeah, I do need to go into the world. I realize that. I'm like, oh, I do need to. I started realizing. Wait a second, I gotta go in the world, and I'm gonna assume the position, like I am some type of empathetic therapist advisor, something like that, disguised in the world. And I think people in the world want me to, like, I think that's what they're trying to do. They're like trying to tempt me to go back to porn or drunk or smoking cigarettes, smoking weed or something like that. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. You can try to provoke me as much as you want, but there's no way I can't go back to it. But I think I have to be in the world. But like, like a empathetic therapist advisor, because there's a lot of people, a lot of non-Christians in the world who are going through mental torment, anxiety, just as I have. And they're going through that because they don't know, they can't figure it out. They've looked to so many different sources. They still can't figure it out because they're going through something in their personal private life. And so they're like out in the streets. And I'm like, oh, then I go out there and I'm like, hey, how's it going? How's it going? And then loving like Jesus, loving them like Jesus. And then they're like, and then they tell me their problems. And then I'm like, hey, man. And then I just say what comes to my mind because I'm operating by EQ. And that's it. And I like, and yeah, something like that. I don't know. Something like that. Yeah. I got one thing I gotta say.